Welcome to the BOPTMN podcast. The following is my conversation with David Colter. David is the president and CEO of GAC Chemical in Searsport, Maine. But he'd prefer to be known as just Dave from the pool, and that's how I know him. As you'll see in this podcast, I hope, Dave is a super positive person. He's somebody that you look forward to seeing. You hope to see his smiling face every time I go to the pool, which is the place where I met David. Master swimming together, and then I see him on the road as he's riding his bike. We haven't actually got together and cycled. Maybe someday we'll have to do that. But Dave's a great guy. Being physically fit is definitely something he's interested in. He's got some very interesting thoughts on business and relationships and getting to know people, nutrition. Those are all things we cover in this podcast. So I hope you enjoy.
But thank you for doing this with me.
Happy to do it.
I'm
Great
excited.
to be here.
So you were about to say that you were talking to Sue?
Right. So you told me that Sue O'Brien was coming in to do the podcast, and I was at the pool and I was talking with Tracy. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "Ben reached out. I was gonna do this." I said, "He just did one with Sue," and it was like 5 minutes later, Sue comes walking in the pool. She hasn't been at the pool, and I haven't seen her at the pool in like a year. So it was that was pretty cool. It was one of those oh my gosh moments where who's listening? Right?
Yeah, I didn't even know you guys knew each other.
She swam with us early on, so when we started swimming at the pool, Tracy Hughes, Sue, Tracy Mahoney, myself, it was me and a bunch of ladies that were swimming originally.
Right.
And then she taught it, I think it was the middle school where my kids went.
Right. And I know she had popped in a few times when I've done masters here and there, just a couple times, but I didn't know how well, people come in and out, and sometimes some of them you know, some of them you don't, but
exactly.
Yeah, it was interesting when I first started considering doing master swim. Like I was showing up to the pool at some random times just swimming, and I think it was Claire was like pushing, like, "Hey, you should do masters. You should do masters." And finally, I was like, "Okay," because I thought it was a bigger thing.
Deal.
Like, well, some master swim teams are more like a swim team kind of thing, and she kind of more explained what it was. I'm like, "Okay, I'll try it." And she's like, "Oh, Dave's gonna be so excited to have another guy."
Yes, I was the only guy.
Right,
exactly.
I remember saying that though. Yeah. So, do you think of yourself as a competitive person?
Yes.
Yeah.
No hesitation. Absolutely.
So I was thinking about kind of meeting you in master swimming and stuff like that, and I'm not sure if I'm the only one that's this way. And when I started there, when I first started with masters, I was trying to lose weight. I kind of got heavier than life had got away from me a bit.
Sure.
So I was getting back in shape, and I started with masters. And for anybody that doesn't know, they had the 3-lane setup, right? The faster lane, the middle lane, and then the slower lane, right? And
exactly.
I started in that middle lane, which I was struggling to keep up then. I remember Darcy and Mary were just pulling. I was just sucking wind, right? And it took me a while. I finally built up, and I was kind of one of the faster ones there. And then I think a couple of the swimmers moved away. So then all of a sudden I'm bumped up into the faster lane, right? I'm with you guys. And then now maybe within the next year I'm kind of like feeling up. I'm kind of on par with you guys.
Absolutely.
And I actually remember one time Sterling says to me, "How Dave's such a powerful swimmer." And I was like, "I'll show you," right? Like, my competitive juice is going. Like, what? Are you saying I'm not? So I would think, like, a lot of times during the swims, I'd be swimming and I'd time it. I'd be like, okay, we have like a 200 we're doing, and it's a rest interval. So it's like a 15-second interval. And I'd be like, okay, I've done 100. I'm going to go for it off. I get 4 laps in, and then I'm going to go for it and pull away from Dave. I never could pull away from you. But I'm like, today's the day I'm going to get him. And I could never get...
There's drafting too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with Tracy. I could never... Like, you just... But I'd play those mental games with myself. And I know, like, it was kind of occurred to me that, like, I was being competitive but not really wanting to challenge you, because if I told you let's go for it,
the change of dynamic of,
right.
of the swim.
But I was definitely getting a better by pushing myself. Like I was pushing myself to my limits too, trying to get away from you, or
I think it's mutual. I mean, I enjoyed it when you swam because I was swimming with a bunch of ladies. And,
right.
You know, Trina could still kick our butt. I mean, Tracy's sister, but.
Oh, I didn't know
Trina
ever came. I didn't realize that.
She did.
Trina's.
She kicked her butt when she was like 8 months pregnant. She was still, up and down.
Really?
But I started out in the slow lane too.
Right.
My first few weeks there was in the slow lane. There was others that were a little bit better. I just wasn't used to it.
Right. Yeah. But I'd have those moments where I'm like, okay, today's the day. Like I'm feeling it today, and I'd time it to like, okay, if I'm coming off the wall, he won't notice, so I'll have a full lap to pull away, and then I just gotta finish it out. Then the rest interval is he's gonna lose pace ground on me on the rest of it, and I could never shake you.
Oh, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think you're a heck of a swimmer. I think you're a better swimmer than I am.
I don't know about that. So that's an interesting thing, and it'll kind of lead into what I wanted to talk to you about. But I was watching a kind of a well-known triathlete who's one of the better U.S. men's guys, and he's a top runner and a top biker, but he's always kind of like slower in I can't think of his name, but one of the slower swimmers, and he's trying to catch up to the swimmers. And his swim coach was saying, we need him to feel the water better. He'll go in and just muscle through, and he spends more energy, but he doesn't get much out of that energy. He's just fighting with the water. It's something I think because of the years of swimming, I've been swimming since second grade, like on a team. I think you just develop that feel for the water, even though I don't quite know how to define that.
Mm-hmm.
But I see newer swimmers that are kind of coming to the sport. I don't know how to tell them to do, what I mean, like how to, but that's it. Like there's the pace of what I don't know what it is, but you seem to have it. I mean, I get what, I think that's what Sterling was kind of saying when he was saying you're a powerful swimmer. Like you do have a good feel. Like I watch you swim, and it doesn't look like you're working really hard and you're moving. Like you have a deceptive pace to when you're swimming.
That's funny.
So where did your swimming come from? Like have you been? Did you grow up? I knew you were gonna say that.
No, I didn't swim until I was out of college. It started as one of my friends said, "Hey, let's do a triathlon," and I said, "Well, I need help swimming." So one of my buddies grew up swimming, and so he's the one that kind of coached me along the way, and it was very helpful. But for me, it's breathing technique. It's breathing. It's like you're running a race. You pace yourself with your breathing.
Right.
And I have a rhythm down, and I stay with that rhythm no matter what. And I think that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when Sam would show up, like it's funny
Sam's
how
raucous. I mean, he's tough. I mean, he's a strong swimmer.
like the tiers of swimmers. You know what I mean? Like there's good swimmers. You and I are pretty similar. And then Sam like swims on top of the water. Like it's a different whole.
Right. He's a guy. He's built for it. Right. He's got
right.
long arms.
Right.
And I find him to be effortless when he swims.
Right.
So he's somebody that watched him for a lot of laps and would swim when he would swim.
I'd always noticed that when I first started swimming, I think you weren't doing flip turns in the shallow end.
I wasn't.
For a while. And I figured, he just doesn't have that good a technique. And then I'd swim next to you, and you'd always push off, and you'd have a full stroke distance on me just on the push-off. I'm like, how does he get such good push-offs? And then when it was a kicking set, it's like, I need flippers just to stay up with Dave. Yeah. I don't know.
There's a lot of time to be gained on the flip.
Absolutely. And I always consider myself pretty good. Yeah. And you're a different level. You're a push-off. I don't know about the flip. I might get over quicker. Yeah. You definitely get off good. Yeah. It's a good workout though.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just say I'm on the board of trustees, and the banner thing that your support has been great. Okay, we have a knock at the door. Yeah? Come on. I can cut this part out.
I'm boxed in.
All right.
Well, I'm glad she came up because I just realized the lens cap was on. We don't have to do that again. I'll just put a picture of us just frozen at the very beginning and put a little note. But I have the lens cap off now, so that's better.
All right, we're good.
So what does swimming do to you? Why do you swim as much as you do?
I find it mentally relaxing. It's an outlet. Work stress goes away. Exertion makes me tired at night to sleep, so it's good.
Yeah. And you're pretty much on a schedule. Twice a week? Like,
I
and
am,
you do
and
a
the pool
weekend.
and the new pool hours are kind of messing me up a little bit because I usually go on Sundays.
Is it? Oh, right.
And they're closed right now
Right.
because of COVID. But yeah, usually it's 2 to 3 times a week just in the water.
Yeah.
It's a stress reliever. I mean, quite
Absolutely.
honestly. And
Yeah.
it helps me keep weight off.
Yeah. Do you miss having, I love, something about having Sterling there that was such a cool thing.
It was nice. I mean,
And
it was
I-
enjoyable, and he was always happy to see us. And
Right. Yeah. And that having, I mean, I guess you guys still, Darcy prints up different workouts for you guys still, right?
Nope.
Pretty much.
No, when we were, she was for a while, and then I kept hoarding them. And
Right.
I had them at home in a stack.
Right.
And then so I entered them into an Excel spreadsheet, and so
Right.
I print them off.
Gotcha.
For me and Tracy, because Darcy hasn't swam with us since COVID hit.
Right.
She was still swimming, and she was doing her own thing, but we're still there swimming together.
Right. Yeah. I did like that, coming in every day and not knowing what was going to be. Like, oh no, it's butterfly today, or whatever random thing he had come up with. So cycling, I'd like to talk about, and then how it all kind of ties together. But I have my cousin him and I have kind of been on a fitness journey together, motivating each other. And he decided he wanted to try an Ironman with me this last year, and he's scared of swimming, he told me, so ever since Jaws as a kid came out, he has a fear of water, but he's like, it's such an irrational fear that he's aware of, that even being in a pool where he knows there's nothing there, he still has this inner thing in his head that like, being in water was still. So he was like, I'm like, you're gonna try to do an Ironman and come from that? And he's a decent swimmer, but he's just terrified of the water, and it ended up not happening. But he came a long way with swimming, and he came out, actually he lives in Portland, and he came up here a couple times, and I showed him some things, and he improved quite a bit. But he's like, I hate cycling, and I kept like trying to like tell him like, look at it this way, and I remember when I first started triathlon, cycling was brutal. Like it was so much harder. The way you're going up a hill and you're working to get up the hill. Now you're working to keep your speed down the hill, and you're working, it's a different kind of workout. What is cycling to you? Like, you must love it, because I see you out there and you're just smiling.
I do enjoy it. It breaks up the monotony from the swim, right? Because just swimming year round, it was just not enough.
Right.
And then when the weather was nice, it's like, okay, I wanted to be out more, and I ride in the mornings before I go to work, and had a couple other guys that were interested in doing that, at least the last couple of years with COVID. And it is it's a more strenuous workout than swimming. It's a different workout, of course, but still aerobic. And I like cycling a little bit better than the swimming just because of that. I mean,
Right.
you'll burn 1,300 calories in
Right.
a workout.
Right.
And again, still mental stress relief. Think about things along the way. I ride to music. I have it on my handlebar. and
Obviously, you just have it playing.
I do.
Not in your head.
no earbuds.
Right.
No,
Because that's a
just
little
playing.
scary on the road.
Well, I have the earbuds for the swim, and I listen to music when I swim. So
Right.
I love it. It just helps take me away to other places, that not thinking about work, not thinking about other things, just kind of
Right.
doing it.
Yeah, but I find when I'm cycling, and I love, so I went from not liking cycling, just it was such a brutal workout. Like I couldn't get into a groove. Like, but now I'm at a point where I'm so locked into what my bike's doing, like the integration of man and machine kind of thing,
Yes.
and what gear I'm in, and just not having to think about it so much now. It's more automatic, and I love it.
But you're riding a lot longer too. I mean, you're doing some big numbers.
Yeah, I did. Well, I took one ride to Portland. We were gonna go to the beach, and I'm gonna get up at sunrise, and I rode to Scarborough actually. That was so much fun. It was such a fun ride. It wasn't that hard compared to like a normal workout. Like it just didn't. It's just longer.
Sure.
That was a lot of fun though. Just
What route did you take to get to Portland? Or
well,
to
so
Scarborough?
my parents live in Damascotta, so I went to Damascotta, so out that way, and then I went down basically one through Freeport, and then I didn't know how I was gonna get through Portland, and that was an interesting.
Sure.
I just let the GPS kind of tell me when to turn, and yeah, it was a fun ride. Congress Street in Portland was like the whole ride. I had no. Then I get to Congress Street, and it happened to be. I want to say it was like a holiday or something was going on in the city. And it was just a mass of people that I'm trying to cycle through. I'm like, okay, this is the only part I don't enjoy right now. Like, but I love I don't know if you've ever ridden a motorcycle.
I have not. I mean, dirt bikes, but
It's the closest thing that kind of open road freedom, wind in your hair.
yeah, that's right.
I love it. I really do love getting out, and I don't know how to get him to kind of get over. I've tried to try doing this and try to think about it this way, and he's a workout kind of guy. It's like, well, think of them as sets, and I don't know how to relay how the joy of it that
Sure.
I found and how I got there, but it's definitely a workout.
Very much so.
Yeah. So when I kind of emailed you, we kind of talked about the connection between mind and body, physical fitness and mental health. What does that make you think of when? Because you responded right to that.
I just find work can be stressful at times. Just the daily grind and having just a release. So it's exercise is it. So find
Right.
something that I can't run anymore. As the older you get, back and knees and so forth. But I've always been active, been an athlete, 3-sport athlete when I was growing up, and just have that built into who I am. And so carrying that on while I'm in a work life and
Right.
having some relief just to kind of keep some balance.
Right. Yeah, it definitely. Anxiety wise, like I feel the difference between the days I don't exercise and the days I do. And I'm starting my day off. I already feel like I accomplished something, especially
Absolutely.
especially if it's strenuous. Like if I push even. Today was a great example. I did not want to run today, and I went out and ran. But like whatever happened in the day is not going to be as strenuous as that. It takes the edge off everything. I feel like.
I would agree. I mean, there are days you get up and you're like, I'd like to roll back and maybe sleep another half hour. But nope, plow forward, and then that feeling of I'm so glad that I pushed through it,
Right.
get it done, sense of accomplishment, get on with the day.
So are you somebody that sets? So like for me, I've been I'll pick a race, or I'm trying to achieve this, and I'm setting goals. But it seems like you're kind of locked into your like you've scheduled in your workouts, and you have a nice balance.
I schedule them in. I'm pretty busy with work and some outside activities that are somewhat work related, and so having that schedule it forces me
Right.
to do it.
Right.
But I do set goals. When I wasn't riding as much pre-COVID, and then when COVID hit, then I started riding more. Then it was okay. I'm going to track how many miles I've done over the summer.
Right. Right.
And I'm even as anal as I've got an Excel spreadsheet that I keep all my days on, how far I went, my speed, and the whole 9 yards, and then look back. So this year was okay. I want to make sure I hit X miles for the summer or for the season, let's
That's
say.
awesome.
And I just took the bike downstairs yesterday.
Did you?
I think I'm done. The weather is just I can't ride in the mornings anymore, and then the
It's too
weekends
dark,
have
right?
been, to the point where the weather's just, today would have been a good day to ride, but
There's definitely a point where it gets too cold.
it does. 40 degrees is about my, too cold.
I even bought some. We had a oh, actually, when I got my COVID shot, I got the state gave out a coupon, gift card to LLB. We were in like oh, I'll do that promotion.
Sure.
And I got little toe covers for my shoe to keep my feet a little warm because my feet get so cold on the bike. I haven't tried them out though.
Okay.
I've been wanting to, but
One of the guys I ride with has a set of those, and said they work great.
I imagine they would.
They do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun sport. I lost my train of thought, but so something interesting. I heard literally today, which I wrote it down. I was listening to a podcast today, and a doctor was saying, and he's like a doctor of longevity. He was saying smoking and diabetes, for instance, increase your chance of death by 3 times. And he said being cardio fit, like having a high VO2, reduces your chances of death by 5 times. So as bad as smoking and diabetes are, physical fitness increases your lifespan by that much more. And I know that's, for me, like longevity is such a huge, I think about it a lot. I'm trying, like you said, like you're trying to increase your mileage from last year. I'm terrified of getting older, and I want to be better. It's like I want to be better than I was last year, in better shape than I was last year, and that kind of motivates me every year. It's like, okay, how do I do that now? Like, and how do I do it next year? And I keep kind of pushing that, but I know at some point I'm going to hit. It's going to turn the other way, and it might have already happened. But I think about that a lot with my kids and potential grandkids, and like I want to be there. What motivates you? Like,
I would say health is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Want to be fit, but again, I just go back to having a stress reliever, because I think stress can create more harm for you over
Absolutely.
the long term, and just having that ability to decompress, relax afterwards, because that's it. You exert all that energy, and then I find the rest of the day I'm more relaxed.
Do you do any like yoga or meditation or anything like
I
that?
have done yoga a couple times, and it's interesting, but I haven't really latched onto it.
Right.
Most days in the mornings I stretch. I'm over 50.
Right.
And,
Right.
I find it just helpful.
Yeah.
For
Well,
the body.
the reason I ask is because or more specifically meditation. I hear people talk about the benefits of meditation, and I've never really done any of that. But I know, like you're saying, in the pool and on the bike, like I'm alone for an hour in my thoughts.
I view it that
that's
way.
my
Absolutely,
meditation, right.
it is, because
Right.
I'd be lying if I didn't say there are times when I'm swimming that work things pop into my head, or if I'm struggling with something at work, let's say, or even in my personal life. It's a time to focus on that while I'm working out. That does happen, and I would agree with you that is that kind of a exercise meditation,
Right.
because you're, let's face it, when we've been swimming enough that we've got the technique down, and you're just going.
Working on the breathing still.
Working on the breathing,
'Cause that's
and
always hard.
rhythmic, and then it just then lets your mind do different things, whether it's
Right.
enjoying enjoying a song, or thinking about things and kind of working those out, or in your brain, or at least trying to get there.
Absolutely. It's similar to like being in the shower. You're in the shower and you're doing your routine in the shower and you're relaxed, and then ideas pop in your head. And I think everybody knows what that's like, but I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to be lost in exercise and have that, because it's a similar kind of thing. And like you said, that personal life or work pops in your head. It's like, well, those are the things your mind wants. It's trying to work through. There's a reason it's popping up. And you think, like the shower, you're relaxed. The workout, it's not relaxed, but it's a relaxed mind though.
It is a relaxed mind. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because I know I do my best thinking when I'm exercising. Like I really do work through things, and I kind of almost think about it from a different perspective than I normally would. Yeah, and it definitely, I feel, what did I hear today, that since COVID, childhood obesity has doubled in the last year and a half across the board.
I did not know that.
And I don't know how true that stat is. I just heard that. Who knows what to believe. But I'm not surprised. I would say it's probably as bad for most people. I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to feel healthy and feel good, to exert themselves, and I feel bad about that. I mean, part of this I'm hoping that maybe inspire some people or think about it, but I feel great when I exercise. I do. There's such it's such an easy correlation for me. Put in the effort and I feel good the rest of the day. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
And I'm getting some longevity out of it. I'm enjoying life more, right? And I think about people that that probably don't live the healthiest lifestyle, and they're probably used to just there's definitely days let's say Thanksgiving week or Christmas week or where I'm overeating and I'm not exercising as much and I feel like crap. I feel horrible. And you got to think a lot of people go through life and that's how they normally feel. They don't know what good feels like.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. I wish I could help them, but I don't know how to.
There's an internal motivation part of this too, and some people just aren't. It's just not their DNA. They're not motivated to do those things, whether
Right.
it's exercise or
Right.
work or a number of things. I mean, I think there's
Right.
a lot of reasons why, upbringing, physical, whatever it may be. I think there's some components there that a lot of people have drive, some people don't.
That's it. You just hit on the two. So there's a guy I listened to, not often, but I read his book. Well, I say I read his book. I listened to his book on CD on audio.
Mm-hmm.
David Goggins. I don't know if you know who he is.
Don't.
He's a just quick story about him. He was abused as a kid, had pretty tough upbringing, was as a young adult quite heavy, and decided I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL. And he had 3 months to go from severely obese to being a Navy SEAL, and trying. And he failed the first 2 times, right at the end. And his third and last time trying to get in, he had broken shins and he pushed through. And now he's an ultra runner and does all kinds of things. He's very vulgar and very loud, but he talks a lot about motivation. He's always trying to find motivation and trying to get motivation, but he calls it kindling. It's lots of kindling. You can light those fires, but they go out quick. Trying to get to the point where you're driven is the goal, where that's when the big log catches and I've been trying to think of how to motivate other people, and it's how do you get that to be internal? Because I don't know how to even describe what I do sometimes, or what you do. It's kind of hard. I see the benefits, but it takes a certain amount of time to get there. When you start exercising, it's not fun. You're sore. And how do you keep that motivation? What keeps you going to the? Is it just that simple? That just.
A couple things come into play where, as a kid you had your friends, right? You're doing things with your friends, sports, exercising, and so forth. And I think that gets instilled at a young age. And even when you're older, to go out and do that on your own, I think that's a challenge. That takes a lot of extra motivation. But if
Right.
you've got somebody like my friend that said, "Hey, let's do a triathlon," I said, "All right, let's do it." And then so we trained together, and we had that back and forth. Or even now, going to the pool on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, it's a little bit of, say, peer pressure, if you will, because I know Tracy and Ian are going to be there, and I want to be there if they're there, or
Right.
vice versa. And so there's that side of it too that helps the drive, and there's some camaraderie there. And so it's not just one thing. I think it's just a couple
Right.
that come into play. But having someone else that will be there with you to suffer through,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Is, commiserate.
Right. And embrace the suffering, which
Embrace the suffering. Exactly.
yeah. Did you? So I do think, like, I've tried to diagnose kind of how I've come to where I am, and I definitely had two very good role models. My parents both, were always, I grew up in Gold's Gym where they're playing it was the racquetball club back then.
Sure.
And they were there every week, or they're at the university playing racquetball, and my dad was always playing basketball, and still to this day they're snowbirds. They bike on Daytona Beach. My mom's like, we don't have hills in Daytona, we have wind.
Yeah.
They bike to pickleball, play pickleball, bike home, and then when they're in Damerscott, they're just very active. Did you have a very active role models?
I would think back then it was the different coaches that I had in the sports I was playing. Very, very motivational, very driven, not to the point of being abusive.
Right.
Not that way. And then just growing up in a neighborhood that had a lot of guys my age where we did all kinds of things together that were sports. I mean, it just fostered from there, and some of my best friends today, I still keep in touch with them, and it started back then, so it was kind of that camaraderie, and I enjoyed it. So it was something that's just stuck with me over the years.
And where did you grow up?
Toledo, Ohio.
So, and what sports did you play? Like, what were your big main sports kind of growing up?
Football, basketball, baseball.
What was your main one?
Football.
Yeah, same here. What position? Or
running back and linebacker. But the truth of that story is, I'm as tall as I was, and I weigh the same amount as I was in about like 8th or 9th grade. So that was it. Topped out of 5'9". It's
well, I topped out of 5'6", so you got me.
But no, yeah, I enjoyed football quite a bit.
What'd you enjoy about it? Like, what? Because I know my answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the hitting. I enjoyed just the adrenaline. It was all of that.
Yeah.
Just all of that. And again, back to the camaraderie with my friends. I mean,
Right.
It was just a very close group. I went back to Ohio a couple of years ago. We had a little reunion of our group, and it was great. It was just so much fun.
Yeah.
To see them again.
I look back at myself at that age, and like I was a different kind of human at that point.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The I love the violence of it. Something about like I'm not that way. Like, that's so not me anymore. But at the time, it was just like and then the my teammates have my back. I've got their back. I have a job to do. They have their job to do. I can't worry about. I got to do my job, and I played literally the same positions as you. I was running back. I was a strong safety till my senior year. I got bumped to linebacker, 135 pound. We did have the top defense in the state that year, not because of me. I could just hold the guards where they were and let the other guys do the time. I loved it though. Yeah. Now you have kids.
I do.
Sons?
Son's 23 and a daughter's 21.
Okay, I thought they were. Yeah, they were. I mean, I don't know today. No. Did your son play football?
No.
And I wonder if I had sons, if I would try to almost steer them away from it with concussions. Like I think of the damage that I witnessed coaching and on teammates, and just it is a little scary.
It is, and with my kids growing up, especially having a son, I was pretty determined to let him find his own way. I mean,
Absolutely.
He's a runner. Then he started to swim. He didn't start swimming until he was a junior in high school, and then swam all 4 years at Husson.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. He's built more for it than I am. 6'3".
Really? Your son's that tall?
He is.
Wow.
I'm the shortest one in my family.
My
My daughter's taller than me.
That's interesting. Is your wife taller?
Yeah, she's 5'11".
Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. That's interesting though, that and I'm guessing I was always when in swimming, so I started off young, and when I was in like second grade, like the younger kids, I mean I was the best. Like I thought, like I told this story I think to Sue. There was a point where like I remember an opponent jumped. It was just a 25-yard swim, and I remember it was a relay, and I remember a kid jumped in the pool, and he was like, I'm like, I remember thinking, as long as he's not 3/4 of the way down the pool, I'll still beat him. That's how. I mean, I was so arrogant back, but as everybody got taller, and I wasn't, I definitely fell off. And my brother, who's 6'1", just when he blew by me, it's like, okay, I'm going diving. Like, I've had enough. But I did notice a lot of times it always seemed like the swimmers that came in later ended up passing the swimmers that had been doing it. I don't know if we were burnt out or we learned bad technique along the way, but I did notice that later comers tended to catch up to us quickly and then pass us. And I wonder, I mean, your son came in late and then went to Hassan. I'm guessing he had, like, his times from his junior year, obviously.
Yeah, he cut quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
But he swam distance for a good part of it. Did some relay. I did the mile.
See, I've done a little. I've done 2 Ironman, so I've done 2 2-mile swims. I do not enjoy distance. It's so fun. Like, I don't think myself as a distance swimmer at all. It's brutal. Even though those swims, I'm not swimming it in the Ironman. I'm swimming it to get out of the water and be as fresh as possible. Like, I'm just being efficient as I can be in the water. Unlike what your son's doing, where he's swimming it for a time.
Right.
Like, that's, I can't imagine the effort that you're putting in. Swimming's such an interesting thing in that you're having to think about your breathing. Like, I tell other people, like, you picture working out in the gym and you're working out, but you also have to hold your breath in the while you're doing your sets. It's such a different thing. Like, oxygen is so important. Yeah. So you grew up in Ohio. Like, how would you compare and contrast kind of how you were raised to how your kids were raised? I mean, what was growing up in Ohio like?
Wow.
Compared to Maine, and were you?
So Toledo, the Toledo area proper is 750,000 people. Moved to Maine and live in a community of 6,500.
Right.
So it different, but not in a bad way. I mean, so we grew up in a suburb of Toledo. Like I said, a lot of kids and so forth, and moving out here, I think it was a good place to raise the kids.
You moved out later in life.
Yeah, right. We moved here in 2003.
Okay.
And our kids were 3 and 5 at the time.
Oh, okay. So
they consider this home because this is where they spent most of their time.
Right.
And so I think that the small community atmosphere was great. I mean, and I think if we were back in Ohio, I still think it would be good. It'd just be a little bit different. Larger schools, just a larger area. I think there were some benefits to being in a small community.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
We had a similar thing with our kids in Massachusetts. I think our girls were like 2 and 3 when we moved here, and Jeff and Melissa were. Jeff was a freshman and Melissa was just going into middle school when we moved here. But it was a similar kind of. It was a nice area we lived in. But there's something about getting lost in the numbers kind of feel, like.
Sure.
And you feel it has a different, he's making the varsity baseball team here, or we're down there, he'd be lucky to get on JV kind of thing, or some I definitely think we made the good call. But how you were raised, so like thinking about how you were raised and then how you decided to raise your kids, like.
Well, two-parent family. I mean, I think that's important when you're raising kids.
I agree.
And I'm the oldest of 3, so I had siblings in the house, and all that goes with that, 3 boys. So it's You know, a little different having one of each. The dynamic is different. Certainly having a daughter versus growing up in a house of all boys.
I'm the same, oldest of three. Same exact scenario now. I've got daughters.
Yeah.
Which I love. Dee and I joke about this because you know how people do gender reveals now?
Right.
And I remember when Dee told me that Logan was going to be, you know, a girl. I mean, I was happy, you know, but there was definitely a change. Like, I wanted a boy, you know, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, that was just a momentary thing, but daddy's little girls is such a, like, a real thing. Like, it's hard to, like, I'm like, thankfully I didn't have boys because I love them. My daughters are so awesome. They didn't take after me.
I think both my parents and my wife's parents were supportive of their kids, sports and all of that, and you know, so I think that's something that we carry on with our children. We have been, you know, very supportive, involved.
Right.
I think is a great way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to one of my coworkers who was on this podcast, and I didn't know anything about his background, and he grew up in Brewer, and he didn't know where his next meal was coming from, and I can't imagine what growing up in that. You know, I struggled. I was not a great student. I kind of figured it out towards the end of high school, and it was more of a motivation thing that I didn't have before. Somebody dangled a carrot in front of me, and it was enough to get me to go in a good direction. I can't imagine trying to think about where my meal's coming from, where I'm going to sleep tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My wife taught in the inner city of Toledo for a number of years and saw everything like that. It's tough.
It's gonna be very tough. I can't imagine as a teacher, you want to help, but you can only do so much.
Exactly.
But I do think there's a certain amount of, like Kyle. I even asked him this. I'm like, that made you who you are today. You know, like you're that having come out of that, which not many can. You know, you definitely, but by getting to the other side of it, it definitely makes you a better person.
Sure.
Yeah. So, goals of getting, I don't know that. So one thing I definitely, it's probably the interweaving thing between all my guests is positivity. And I mean, you are the most positive person I kind of know. Like, we were at 11 Central and you kind of came, like, I'm somebody that sees somebody, it's like, oh, I don't want to interrupt. Like, you're happy, you're always happy to come say hi. It's always a pleasure to see you. And where does that positivity come from?
Well, I don't know that I don't know that it was taught. I just think it's part of who you are. I mean, you said self-described introvert to a degree. I mean, is that just who you are, or was that, you know, growing up that there were factors that caused you to be that way?
I think I know my factors. I can get to that.
Okay. I don't know. I like people. I like to be engaging. And so once I meet someone, it's like, okay, you know, how can I learn more? Or if I see you out, or you know, my wife laughs at me when we're on vacation. I will purposefully wear something that will say Maine, or I'll wear something that is my college, or something that, or if I see someone and I'm outside the state, I'm like, oh, they got a black bear, or they've got something on that I recognize. I'll walk up to people all the time and say, hey, you got a black bear hat on. What part of Maine are you from? And anymore, she's used to it. But in this instance, you know, yeah, seeing you out, or anybody that I know, I want to go up and say hi. You know, how's it going? Especially if I haven't seen you in a while. And I'm like that with some of my my buddies in Ohio, or that I grew up in Ohio, and now they're at other places. You know, pick up the phone and I call. And they say, you're the only guy that does that. And I said, well, I enjoy you as a person.
Right.
And, you know, we had a connection, and some of those go by the wayside. I mean, it's not true for everybody.
Right.
So I don't know. I've always been like that. I've always been outgoing and not afraid to do a podcast. When somebody asks me, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" I'm like, I've never done that, but what the heck? Why not? Why not?
But obviously you have bad days.
Oh, we all do.
Right.
We all do.
But you seem, I only see you every once in a while. But we all have bad days, and and at work, and there's stress. But I feel like you're somebody that, like, how do you check that? Like,
well, after you wallow in it for a little bit, then you figure out, well, who's going to make it better? Nobody else but me.
Right.
So get over it. Be a problem solver. You know, it's a message we give our kids.
Yeah. I'm always saying to myself, like, what's the point of this? Like, what am I achieving by this negative line of thinking?
Right. Where's it going?
Yeah.
Is it going to ruin the day? And there are things that do ruin your day, but then it's like, okay, you wake up, it's the next day, it's a new day.
Yeah, I heard.
I don't know if I have a really good answer for you there, but it's just a thing. If you're going to dwell on it, I've done that. I mean, like anybody else. I mean,
Yeah.
And you finally reach a point, like, all right, get over it, or come up with another way.
Right. Yeah, I heard, the singer Jewel.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about that she had a pretty crazy upbringing in Alaska, and
She's on that TV show.
yeah, her family.
Mm-hmm.
That's what. Yeah, I haven't. I'm aware of it.
I haven't watched it in a while, but
Yeah.
I enjoy tuning in every now and
Right,
then.
but she was saying how she was homeless and in Southern California, I think, and was contemplating suicide. I believe, I think is what she said, and she said she was sitting there staring at the ocean, watching the tide. Like, she was there for a while because she's watching the tide come in and the tide go back out, and it occurred to her, things pass. It's all gonna pass. Like, I just gotta wait for this little bad stretch to go by. And it ties back into exercise. I notice a lot, like when I'm running, when I'm biking, when I'm swimming. You like, I'm on a run. It's like, oh, I'm not feeling it. Okay, I just gotta put that on my head. Let my head go somewhere, and the next thing I know, I'm back into a good pace again. Or it passes, and dwelling on it just gets me. Like, and as soon as you start dwelling on something, it always seems to amplify and get worse. And there's a clear connection there. But you have quite a bit of responsibility with your position, what you do.
Yes, I do.
It's interesting because I Google. I knew what you did, and I knew you had I kind of knew your position, and I Googled, and it's like, oh, president, CEO. I'm like, it doesn't ring to me. You're just Dave from the pool, right? And I'm sure that's how you want it to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it is a very, there's quite a bit of responsibility with that position, especially at a chemical company. And I'm sure that we just talked about needing stress relievers. There's a reason you need a stress reliever, because it's. So how does somebody come from Toledo, Ohio, to where you are now, career-wise?
So the company that I work for was headquartered in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and they purchased a facility in Maine. Oh gosh, back in '94, and I joined the company just after that acquisition, and so family-owned business, father and son were running it, owning it, and so forth. And it's not unusual in family-owned businesses for generations to maybe not see eye to eye, and they decided to split the company up, and the son wanted the Midwest facilities, and there was the Maine facility left, and so the owner of the company asked me if I would move, and as part of that willingness to go was an ownership piece of the company, and that was enough to get me to move my family 1,000 miles away from all of our family and come out here. And
Had you been to Maine before?
I had. So started in '94, didn't move here till 2003, and I ended up running the financial side of the business from '97 to 2003. So I came to Maine quite a bit and knew the people, knew the plant, knew the business, and just saw that as an opportunity to do something different. When we told people we were leaving Ohio, they're like, we never thought that you would leave. We thought you guys were homebodies. You would never leave the state, never leave the Toledo area.
Right.
But it was a challenge, and it was an opportunity. But it was also a situation where we thought I would be in Maine for 2 to 3 years, because the owner was getting older, and said, well, will you move out there and help me straighten some things out, and we'll sell it. And I said, sure. So 5 years in, we finally got things kind of going in the right direction. And at that point, I was kind of invested. And then we started to talk about, okay, what's the future going to look like? His retirement. Did I want to continue to stay with the business? Do we want to sell it? And we still wasn't really in a position where the company was going to draw much as far as a sale price. So stuck it out for a little bit longer, and then it became evident, like, well, I'm in. I'd like to take over running it. And I was running it. I had the title and everything in 2003, but the ownership side, that kind of came a little bit, I'd say, later within those first few years. And having that vested interest, and then enjoying what I'm doing, and family was happy, the kids were loving it. So It was, well, why don't we try and make this a little more permanent? And so it's been a good run. It really has. I was in my 30s when I took over running the company. I mean, so it was a lot of sleepless nights early on, and a lot of work that needed to be done. And there were, some of those days where you're feeling sorry for yourself, and maybe that helped shape me, even more so, that you figure out, all right, take a deep breath, tomorrow's a new day, and you just kind of plow through. And a lot of people helped us along the way, which was great.
So I don't really know what GAC Chemical does. Am I even saying that right? GAC?
I prefer GAC.
Okay, GAC, sorry.
And that's it's been the name of the company for a long time. And so we've kept the name.
So give me a quick kind of what...
I would say that you could describe it as water treatment chemicals, so water and wastewater. And we do industrial chemicals, and then we also have a food and pharmaceutical line. So there's about 80 people that work at our facility. We've ballooned up closer to 100. COVID's kind of impacted that a little bit.
Right.
But it's a good group. It's a fun business.
And so do you have a business background? Is that like what you went to school for, or?
So I'm a CPA by trade.
Okay.
I don't do taxes, but so I have a financial background, and when I got out of college, I went to work for a CPA firm, saw a bunch of different businesses, so from hospitals to manufacturers to large companies to small companies, and just decided that I like that small company type feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't know, it just seemed to suit me, more personable in the people you employ. You can have that family type atmosphere, close-knit group.
Right.
And I had an opportunity to leave the firm after about 4 years there, and I joined GAC. So I've had 2 jobs since I left college. So I've been at GAC now for over 25 years, and it's just like it's flown by.
Was that a good path, do you think, for what you did, or would there be a better path?
I don't know. I mean, I guess another path would have been just stayed with the firm longer, and then maybe slide into a position at a larger company, and certainly a pathway. But I like.
But the schooling wise was it?
The schooling wise,
like, is it?
Absolutely. And the hilarious part of I went into business because I didn't like the sciences. I didn't like chemistry. Now I'm running a chemical company. So.
Right. Right.
We've got a lot of smart people that work at the company that can handle that kind of stuff.
Right. Right. And then there was a point where I believe for my work, the safety director, you ended up hiring him, and there was a connection there, and that occurred to me at that time, like, oh, Dave works at a company that needs a safety director, and that responsibility of that, like that, and I know for where I work at, Dennis Jobs Foundations, like safety is what brought us to the next, the company to the next level. But having that be a priority, I wanting your workers to go home safe every night. I mean, that's got to keep you up at night. Just worrying about, because responsibility. I'm sure you've thought about this all. I don't want to be putting on you here. Oh, it never occurred to me. But there is a lot of responsibility there.
A lot of responsibility. Safety, environmental, all of it. All of it. And so that was a kind of a renewed focus. We had a gentleman working for us, been there 45 plus years and was retiring, and he was our safety guy, and so trying to replace that was important to us.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a huge thing. Obviously, your chemicals are not the safest things.
No, but chemicals are in your everyday life,
right?
And so when you think about the kind of things that we do, we're making chemicals to clean drinking water, to treat wastewater, that go into food preparation, food manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing. So they're all made for a better purpose.
Yeah, and you were working deals in Mexico, and
we have
how's all that,
yes.
How's that all come
We
up?
have a group that has manufacturing assets on our site from Mexico,
mm-hmm.
and it's just part of. As much as we talked about me being a little bit of an extrovert, it carries into my business. So we're not afraid to be out there. We're not afraid to network to help us. We're a small company. We have one location in Maine. How do we get that word out? And our company, well, that facility has been a manufacturing facility since the early 1900s. Fertilizer, and then it was really big into paper, and then moved out here in '03. And paper is not what it is.
Right.
It's not today what it was back then.
Right.
And so we had to find a way to reinvent ourselves. And so it was, okay, what are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? And so, hit the ground running here in '03. I really didn't know anybody. I knew the people that worked at the plant.
Right.
But then it was, okay, I got to get to this organization and this organization and just get out there to meet people, to then say, hey, here we are, here's what we do. You got to raise your hand, right? Here we are. People typically don't just call us and say, hey, we want to come to your facility, or we want you to make this product.
Right.
Especially when you're trying to diversify and grow your business. And we're not walking away from paper. We're still deeply entrenched in that, but it's a smaller group now that we deal with. And for that group of people that work Waldo County, I mean, it's not a big area, and there's not a lot of industry there. A lot of local folks. So how do we kind of keep that going?
Right.
To provide the jobs that we do. And so it's been a journey, and we're still on the journey. And that's the fun part. I mean,
I was just going to say that.
It's that's the drive. How do you win? How do you win at business? How do you have a better time when you're exercising? It's just that drive and
right.
the competitiveness of to be successful.
And I know for me, I couldn't work a job where I didn't have new challenges every day, and that's my favorite part. I even switched jobs for you. Like, I love starting a new job. I know you don't have much experience in that, I found out, but every time I'd start a new job, I always was. I'd interview and get a position I didn't quite deserve. I'd interview up. Like oversell myself, and then I'd be like, okay, now I've got it. Now I got to figure things out and quick. And I love that. I love that pressure, that being in that position. And I'm just thinking about what you're saying there. Like, figuring out, okay, how do we find this? How do we fit? What's going to need us in the market, and making it happen? That's going to be quite a rewarding, challenging, but rewarding, but something I think.
It is, but having a group of colleagues that I do, and working together on that it's your team, whether it's your basketball team, your football team. It goes
Right.
back to what we talked about.
Right.
You know, somebody's got your back, or having those people that you trust and that have those common interests or common goals. And part of our transition from the founder of the company is we put it into an ESOP, so we're employee owned. So there's that additional, I'll say, incentive,
Right.
because they've got a direct financial interest in how well the company does, and that's very motivating for
Absolutely
a lot of
is.
people. That it's not just working for the man. I'm working for myself in a way, because, and that's the message. We go through strategic planning every year, and the management team that gets together, I said, you are the people that make things happen here. Our decisions we make every day, not just the ones that David makes, impact the success or failure on a daily basis. And we all fail. I mean, so it's not that, failure, is not an option. I mean, failure happens. But it's then how you deal with that, how you pick yourself up and get back in the game, right? And all right, we're not going to do that again. We're going to do something different. But that whole group is then focused on those common themes of, I'll say winning, but it's like setting goals and being successful and dealing with challenges, and how do we grow our business. And trust me, it's not just me. I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm the one that did all this. That's not it. We got this team approach, and strategize and be collegial in how you go about running our business.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see all the analogies to sports, and what my girls. I mean, there's been seasons where, especially during COVID, it was kind of hard, but it's like, I want you playing sports. Pick a sport, but you're doing a sport. There's so much value in there. Just in the losing, you learn the most from each little failure. You learn so much. Each success, the teamwork, everything that goes in. I mean, there's just so many layers and layers that just directly correlate to work, to being successful. And then it's interesting when you mentioned the buying in, and that I remember my job during college. I worked at the Bangor Mall in Athletic Attic. It was a shoe store, and we were the number one shoe store in the mall by far. And they gave us like 1% on we'd get 1% on every shoe sold, or 5%, or whatever. It was a small percentage, but we were so motivated to sell shoes. We were just, and we did a good job. We didn't want them returning them, because then we'd lose the numbers.
Sure.
That little bit of incentive made us competitive with each other, because we had on the little computer, and we could pull up and see where you were on the hour. Like, oh, we passed me, I gotta get a couple more. But it was amazing that we're talking about a shoe store and a little tiny incentive, and how far that went. And I could see how what you're talking about, with you can have people buying into safety, where in a bigger company or doesn't have that kind of vibe, where it's hard to sell somebody. Well, if an accident happens or something happens, how that hurts the company, hurts all of us, and brings us all. Yeah, I think that's a great thing.
That's an ongoing challenge. It just is in any company.
Right.
It's
Right.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I think about when I was talking to our safety director. I was growing up, when I worked in construction jobs. There was always this macho kind of like, who's the guy that can go up the ladder and do this crazy, oh, that's the guy that got it done. Wow, it was celebrated. And trying to work that out of people, don't think that way.
He's the hero.
But we all want to be the hero in a certain way.
They do.
Yeah. I was thinking today, just the random things that come into my head when I'm running. I just was thinking about restaurants today, and I was trying to think of like what's my favorite restaurant in Bangor right now, and I'm for like 2 or 3 miles. That's all I get. I'm like, I like this one, but then this one, but it, and I couldn't. I've got a whole bunch of in my head, and then I was trying to think about what do I want out of a restaurant experience, and it is. I think it's great that we have so many options here in this area, and I've seen you out a couple times. Like, what is your what are your go-tos in the Bangor area, and what do you like about them?
Probably 11 Central.
I love 11 Central.
Yeah. A couple things on their menu just have, struck a chord. It's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
We're talking about the pork?
Sea bass.
Oh, I'm not a sea bass. I've heard people rant and rave about the sea bass.
Sea bass is sinful.
I love the little atmosphere of that restaurant.
It doesn't have what I would say a traditional main feel. I mean, it's a little more eclectic.
Right.
And I think that's a big draw.
Oh, what was the one? I'm going to forget the name. Terratine. Have you been to Terratine?
I've been to Terratine a few times, just for special events. I've never been there just to go there for dinner.
That was interesting, but they have the whole game room set up on the second floor. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've hosted a couple groups there before.
That was kind of a nice night, like value-wise. Dee and I, we spent, like we had our lunch, had our dinner, and then we went upstairs and we played pool and air hockey or shuffleboard or whatever for a couple of hours and just hung out. I was
been to the rooftop?
It was we're talking like 3 weeks. It was pretty cold. Okay. We did go to the rooftop, but it wasn't like open. I thought that was a pretty nice, interesting little space though. That they took an old house and kind of made it into something.
Right.
But I'm with you, 11 Central. There's something about that vibe of that little building. And then Patty's. Dee and I keep going back to Patty's. There's something about the old. I think it's maybe the oldest restaurant that's left in that area.
I think so.
Probably.
I haven't been there in a while.
And then there's sometimes we like Mexican. There's a lot of little options in Bangor. And then
absolutely. Pepino's is our favorite Mexican place downtown.
Yeah.
Remember when they were out on Stillwater?
That was such a tough little location near the mall there.
It was, and I would describe it inside as more institutional. And now where they are was, I know it was New Moon for a while, and I don't even know what it was before that because I wasn't here. But that's another nice little atmosphere. The old brick and the way they have it arranged is good. And
the thing I've kind of noticed that I like a lot, which I tend to steer away from the chain restaurants. There's something about like when you're at 11 Central and you're there for a while. Like you don't feel like they're just kind of like, here's your appetizer, here's your and it allows you to sit and have a conversation and spend some more time. And I'm amazed at that difference. Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah. Just something that popped in my head today. An interesting fact I saw on that longevity podcast that I was listening to. There's a direct correlation between grip strength and longevity. And he was saying that his thought, part of it is as you grow older. He was saying how falls, like once you cross 75, falls are such a big thing. A fall at 75 can take you out. And having grip strength that you can grab something and hold yourself up could help. But he also said that as you lose your body strength, grip strength is a good indicator of losing overall muscle mass.
I've never heard that.
I just kind of caught me.
You're a wealth of information today.
I love learning the little silly things. Who knows how accurate. What are your thoughts on this kind of crazy world we're living in nowadays? And we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but
no, I think the first few months of it were a little unnerving. We were in Florida when I think it really started to break in March of 20. And being away from home, we were just down there for a week, right, on 2 weeks on vacation. And I remember when the when the NBA player was making fun of COVID, then he got it, and it seemed like it was there. It just kind of steamrolled, and they were shutting down the beaches, they were shutting down the restaurants, and there was talk about shutting down domestic flights. We're like, how are we going to get home? And so that whole time was, I just refer to as just very unnerving. I mean, you have your normal, routines and life stresses, and this just kind of puts another layer on there that I think has impacted people in so many ways. And go back to then, how do you relieve anxiety, stress, some of those things through you and I through exercise, and not everybody's like that. And so fast forward to where we are today, and it's still this cloud, but knowing there are vaccinations or other things that people can do, we're kind of trying to get back to some normalization. We're not there, and I think that still is a little bit troubling.
Right.
In trying to manage a workforce through this. We consider ourselves an essential business. We're providing chemicals to water treatment plants, so those plants still need to treat water, and people need to drink water during all of this. So we had a very thankful group working down at the plant that, thank goodness we're open. I can come to work, I can have some normalcy, I can have my routine, and I think that was certainly a benefit. But where do we go from here? I don't know. It's just crazy, and we talk to our people often about what's going on. Fully admit we don't have all the answers. We're trying to do the best we can for
right.
A small employee-owned company in Searsport, Maine, right? And just having, I think, the dialogue and even recognizing that we don't have the answers. We're just like everybody else, and trying to make sense of everything that's happening. And
right.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but at least being visible and being out and just kind of talking through it. And again, it could be a commiseration too, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're wearing masks now again, or we're doing this or doing whatever. But I don't know if that's what you're kind of looking for. It's just trying to get along, and I don't know, not get too high, not get too low, because it's easy. I mean, you can tell that it has impacted people, and it sometimes put people on edge and anxiety, and that's all normal. And when you don't have one thing to point to, and then some of it has become so political that that's a whole nother set. And
right.
I'm not going in a political direction, but I'm just saying, just in general, I think that just adds to it.
Yeah, that whole essential business, and I totally understand why you guys would be essential, but just even drawing that line, what's essential? If you have imagine you're running a smaller business that is told it's not essential. Well, it's essential to me. Like, I need this to survive. Right. That I could see how that be. Yeah, I don't know how some of these restaurants made it. I mean, to be honest with you, that's just one industry. I mean, the stress that must be on.
There's a lot. I mean, think of those that haven't made it. I mean,
right.
Some got creative, some shut down for a while, then reopened, and even during when some were opening, or they were trying to be creative and do something, not that we felt an obligation, but we wanted to be out, whether it was doing takeout or those that were still
right.
doing indoor
right.
seating, to show them support, right? So
right.
we're open, we're working, we're all still getting paychecks, and then trying to pass that along and be out in the community and supporting.
Right. Yeah, I know that in workforce right now is hard. The workers have just disappeared.
I've had numerous conversations with not only inside our facility, but more so outside our facility, other business leaders of, what are you seeing? And we're all seeing the same thing, and we're all asking the same question, and nobody seems to have the answer of where did everybody go? Where'd they go?
Right.
And so I don't know if I think it's a combination of things where the baby boomers were going to retire. They were retired, but then they kept working longer. They kept working longer. So I think some of them decided, well, I'm gonna exit.
And they're probably they're in a higher risk. I hadn't even thought about
right.
that. But
They're in a higher risk.
So wanting to come back, being at risk too, keeps
Sure.
them away. Yeah.
Then I think you have families where you had two working spouses, let's say, and children, and then okay, now you got daycare issues or whatever, and one stays home, and then decides not to go back to work. I mean, so it's not going to be one thing, but you kind of point all these different
Right.
dynamics that are happening, and so take those folks that maybe had mid-level, let's say mid-level jobs, and they leave. So then your entry-level people kind of take those jobs, and now you're trying to fill the entry-level people. And where are they going to come from?
Right.
Recent graduates. Okay, great. Then who else?
And we're a good state at exporting our youth too, unfortunately.
So it, we up until this, we didn't have a problem hiring people. It's a small community down in Searsport and the surrounding towns, and we would just let our employees know we're looking to fill some slots, and it was friends and family show up. Never had to advertise.
Right.
We got a sign out on Route 1
Right.
that we're hiring, and that's helped, but it's nowhere near. I mean, I could easily hire 10 or 15 people today. They're just not there.
I'd like to think that a lot of workers have. I mean, for me, a big priority in any job I have was family time. That's. I work so I can spend time with my family and have the most comfortable life we can have together and enjoy our, and making memories and stuff like that. And, a lot of people, I do think a lot of people were the kind of American dream, chase the dollar kind of thing, and realized. I'd like to think in my wishful thinking, Dee always says I'm too positive, like a glass half full all the time. But I'd like to think a lot of them are like now spending more time with their families and
Sure.
found that priority. I think it's probably gone the other way. There's probably more alcohol consumed and more domestic problems, I think. But I'd like to think it. That's my whole wishful thinking that's what's happening. The introvert thing. I'll tell you where that comes from. I think my dad was a Methodist minister, so we moved around. There was some kind of they didn't want their ministers to stay in a place too long, and so you keep getting new perspectives. I kind of moved around a little bit, and it was one of those situations where everybody knew me in the church, and I didn't really know any of them. And they'd all come up, or I'd see people everywhere, and just, oh, hi, Ben. And I always felt bad not knowing people, but it didn't drive me to know more people. Nowadays, I think I'd try to challenge myself. Okay, get to know more names, learn more people. But back then, it's just it was so annoying to me to have people know me, and I didn't know them. So I kind of I think regressed away from that and tended to try to be more invisible.
Sure.
I think that's where it started. And then I don't know, somebody will ask me oh, you did a triathlon, you did an Ironman, yeah, and there's assumptions that somebody makes when I say it, or we're talking about that, or it's well, that's only part of the story, or there's such a bigger thing that got me to, for me, a marathon was impossible. There was a point not too long ago where running a marathon was an impossibility. I didn't think that was something I could physically ever do, and then I did it, and then it was an Ironman. Those people are crazy. I don't know what they're thinking. That's so, you're gonna do all that and then do a marathon, which the marathon's impossible, and then I did one. And for me, it's what is possible. I'm getting older, but I'm doing things I couldn't do last year or the year before, and there's this bigger story that these little conversations don't get to, and something about that bugs me that I'm only able to give them this small little snippet of me, and there's so much like, and I like I didn't answer the question fully. It's only a little bit, and this right here is an opportunity to kind of break out of that. Like
Sure.
and to explain things or get to know a different perspectives. It's so for me. It's so exciting because I don't get that opportunity, and I have this aversion to these short conversations, which it's funny because you seek them out, like you said, in the airport,
Absolutely. Wherever.
which it sounds very appealing to me when you describe it. It's like I should start doing that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not afraid of it. I mean, I don't come off as I don't know, a weirdo, right? It's engaging. It's sports, right? Or it's something to engage someone in conversation, and even, in my business sense, I had to be willing to put myself out there, and say, hey, I'm David. I'm with GAC. I'm in Searsport. This is what we do. I just try to find out, based on what your company does, any synergies. We could work together. And there's way more no's, and not in a rude sense, but it's just I have to find that connection to then see, and then it's not so much just all of the business side. Truly enjoy people. And we've got one of our customers, one of their senior executives a number of years ago. He nailed it. He said, people do business with people they like, and so you make those connections, and it's helpful,
Right.
because then it's fun. Oh my God, I like Ben. We have these things in common, and my gosh, from a business perspective, we might be able to do this together. And,
Right.
a lot of that happens, and I think it was part of our, from a business perspective, reinventing ourselves and trying to get out there. And the only way you're going to do it, I mean, it's, think about some of the folks I know in the banking industry where they tell their guys to go out. I want you to get 100 no's. Right? Well, you got to start somewhere, and you just start meeting people and meeting people and meeting people. And I think that's just clicked with me as part of who I am and my personality. That then I find it fun. Because you never know, we may not do business together, but oh, you like fishing? Oh my gosh, I love fishing. And you get off on these tangents, and then Maine's such a small community, the state,
Right.
big geography, but I try to tell people that I know that don't live here, I said, it's crazy. I said how small the state is. And from a business perspective, then that's is very helpful of the connections you make, and whether you do business or not, but it's the people, and it just all becomes intertwined. That I'll tell you a story. So I went when I am on the board of the Maine State Chamber, and so the administration switched from LePage to Mills, and one of so the president of the chamber, Dana, said, in any administration you're gonna have those changeovers, and you really need to introduce yourself to the new administration. And he said, not just to me, he said to the whole group.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Absolutely. So, reached out to some of the folks down in Augusta who were representatives down in our area, and made appointments to see him. And each one of them asked me, what is it you want? What is it you want me to do for you? And I said, nothing. Like, what do you mean nothing? I said, well, it's changeover administration. You're now a new person in, our area, and so forth. I said, I just thought that you might like to meet me, and I could meet you and introduce myself and tell you what we do. Like, you don't want anything? I'm like, nope. And they were like amazed at that. There's a longer term. There's a longer a cycle to that, right? Because if you know somebody, if I have an issue down the road, I'm not the guy calling for the first time,
Right.
saying I need something.
Right.
I'm down here to introduce myself, talk to you, find out what your priorities are, we're a small company. Here's what we do. You know, you're our representative, or whatever the case may be. Is that I don't have an agenda. I mean, I guess you could back up and say, well, yeah, you do. You have a longer term agenda, but
Right.
it's really, I think it's more than that. It's not that superficial, because, you know, you want to make that. I want to make that connection, so that whether I see them at another meeting or somewhere, it's like, oh, you're the guy that came down and met with me, didn't want anything. I mean, it's just something silly like that. It could be. So it's just, I guess, part of who I am in wanting to make those connections and have those relationships, that whether it benefits us or not, in the business sense or the personal sense, we're just people, right?
Right.
And anyway, I get off on a tangent, but
No, I appreciate it.
so
I was just trying to think of like what that's like. So obviously the person you're talking to is used to having people come to them with needing things all the time.
Yeah.
Right? That's the norm. And how that would be, I'm trying to picture like being in that situation where you're, are they promising things? Are they trying like what?
I think they're genuine. I mean, they're right. I'm a constituent. Oh, how can I help you today? Is there something you want? Something you need? I'm like, no, just put a name with a face.
I can see how.
How can you forget this face, right? You know,
Right. So another thing I've kind of, I don't know if I'm, it's probably in my own head, but my weight fluctuates, or last couple of years, you know, winter I'm gaining weight and then I'm losing weight, and I got like a 20-pound cycle that I can kind of come out, and I'm always either trying to lose or I'm gaining. Like I'm never there's the like balance. You seem to have you've struck to me from, you seem to have a good balance with your physical fitness and your nutrition. Is there anything nutrition wise that you kind of do, like anything like?
So pre-COVID, no, not necessarily. It was just random exercising and so forth, and it was one of the things my doc would tell me. I'd go in every year for my physical, and 195, 197. I said to him, it was 2 years ago. He said, well, you're consistent. Man, your numbers are fine, this and that. And I said, all right. I said, well, you know. But where I'm at with my height and so forth, he said, well, geez, you believe the charge. He said, technically, you're obese. I'm like, right. And he just started laughing. He said, yeah, the way they do the charts and so forth.
Right.
I said, well, all joking aside, I said, well, what do you think? And without missing a beat, just matter of fact, he goes, you can stand to lose 30. I went, what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, 165? Went home and told my wife that. She's like, oh my God, 160. You would look sickly at 165. So
I find that an interesting attitude. I've heard that a couple times with other people.
So I lost 20.
Did you really?
I did.
How'd you do it?
Bike.
Just
It was
exercise.
No, I take that back. I think, all right, yep. Started that, and then the last 2 years, it's intermittent fasting.
I'm such a fan. Yeah.
So even today, so I swam today, and I didn't eat until 11. So my version of it, which I learned from my wife, because she's been doing it for longer than me. So 8 hours. So 11 a.m., 7 p.m. And usually we're not eating at 7. Usually it's a little bit earlier than that. And then that's been the cycle, and you put that with the exercise. And, you know, exercise in a way can be a suppressant of appetite.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, a couple cups of coffee in the morning, you know, still do that. But it's been those two, and I was way out last week. I was telling you, and it was did a customer event down in Florida, and I was like, oh my gosh, ate large, and I'm like, get back home, I got on scale. I was like, oh, geez, so I know I need to do so back at it, but that's been it. So that intermittent it was one of those things that it clicked, it worked.
What would you normally have before that? Like, so you're basically cutting out your almost breakfast.
I would.
Snack.
I mean, I would eat something for breakfast, and it might even be a handful of cookies with my cup of coffee.
Right. Right.
That was breakfast or whatever. So tried to kind of cut that out, but and then trying to eat semi-healthy for lunch and not pound it down. Have smaller portions and not skimp so much at dinner.
Right.
And it seems to work.
It absolutely. I mean, for me, it's been.
Dude, you were ripped when you were training for that. I was going, holy crap! I mean, it was impressive.
It was just loss.
Well, no, I mean, you put all that together.
You.
I mean, I know you're on a regimen because we talked about it at the pool. I'm over 50. I mean, I don't, between my work life, personal life, and what exercise I do, I don't know if I could do what you do. Not that I would mind doing that, but
right.
just I'm in a different cycle right now, so I was watching you with great interest in how you were doing, what you
right.
were doing. So I know I would kind of quiz you sometimes when I'd see you at the pool, just because I was intrigued. And you were ripped, and I think you were telling me about that regimen you were on. Like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of doing that. I'm not to that extent, but I believe in it.
I've toyed around with a whole bunch of different things. I did vegan for a couple of weeks. I've done carnivore. I've done keto, paleo. Just kind of just mixing them up and trying them and see how my body felt and different things. But fasting's been the most.
I did the no carb thing, the Atkins, years ago. I think I was actually still in Ohio when I did that, but I weighed today what I weighed in my senior year in high school.
Right.
And so, 180 is 175, 180.
Right.
And I still look healthy, but I'm not emaciated.
Oh, you look like a strong guy.
Yeah. So it's.
I see you.
So
when
yeah.
You shoot.
So no, it's been good. It's been absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest in trying to run farther distances, just trying to get up to the marathon. There's the wall you hit at like 18, 20 miles that's you can't digest enough to perform, to finish the race. You burn more than you can have in your system. So then there has to be a different solution, and fasting mixed with kind of keto, lower carbs, your body is forced, it's like I don't have carbs, I have to burn something else, and it starts becoming more efficient at burning body fat, and that's what kind of gets you. And that's since I've kind of been toying with that. So like I get locked in, like I have a race, I'm going to do this race on this day, so 3 weeks out I got to be locked in, and I can get so locked in. And that's probably when you saw me, I was kind of really at the peak of being locked in, but there's no doubt that made a huge difference. But then the fasting, the thing that's been blowing I talked to Sue about this recently. So I did my cousin, who I've been on this journey with, he started a podcast. He's the one and had me on his podcast. He's never released it. He kind of decided it's too much time and effort. He's starting his own business, or has had a business, but now is kind of like it's soul focused, and it hasn't been enough time to continue his podcast. But in that podcast, he kind of told me about intermittent fasting and what he was doing, which sounded intriguing. He goes, and then I want to try like a 3-day fast and a 5-day fast. So that it got rattling around in my head, and then I tried it. So I did a 3-day fast, and I didn't exercise much then. Like I did kind of light exercise, and then I did a 3-day fast with full exercise, and then I did a 5-day fast. I had energy for 5 days. Like it was amazing to me. So like, and the thing that kind of keeps playing around in my head, wants and needs. Like I'll have a granola bar or something, and 20 minutes later I'm already starting to I can go for something else. do I really need that? I can go 5 days, but I can't go 20 minutes.
Right.
What is that? And I think a lot of it's sugar consumption, but in the your body's craving that and wanting that back. But that's been something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I reprimand myself a lot because I definitely cave into the wants way too often.
Yeah, I jokingly say that the exercise regimen allows me to indulge in certain vices because I self-proclaimed Gagan's beer snob. I love their beer,
right?
And it's like, okay, if I have a few beers, then I want to be able to handle it from a weight perspective.
Absolutely,
that's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, without and one other thing there's a podcast I listen to, Lex Friedman, every once in a while, and he was saying anytime he's going out to dinner he fasts that whole day, because and I can tell you from my longer fasts or even just a day fast, that first meal you have, it doesn't matter if it's a McDonald's hamburger, it's the best tasting hamburger you've ever had. And when he said that, I'm like, what an interesting idea, because you get to that meal, it's just like a sensory overload.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that we talked about embrace the suck and the misery of it, and just the balance of exercising, and then you feel better. You restrict yourself and you feel better. And I heard a psychologist kind of talking about nowadays we have pleasure at our fingertips. Anytime we need stimulation, we can look at our phone, pull up YouTube or pull up whatever, Facebook or whatever it is nowadays. And she was saying how we need to be more alone in our thoughts. That's what we're losing in this as our technology is advancing, and kind of being in that suffering. It doesn't have to be the big time suffering, but just that little discomfort makes the pleasure better. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, I get that.
Yeah.
You mentioned technology, and it's the instantaneous, but I enjoy unplugging. I enjoy getting out where the phone doesn't work. It's hard to just shut the phone off when I'm at home, because I'm like, all right, I'm at home, still reachable
right.
from a work perspective, but there's a couple times a year that I cherish where out of pocket, phone doesn't work because I'm off the grid,
mm-hmm.
and it's wonderful. I look forward to that. Just given everything that we have today that is still good, right? All that technology and access.
Right.
But, you and I grew up in at least I did, he asked me back to the growing up in Ohio was, go out and play. Be back for dinner. It's in the morning. All kinds of stuff to do during the day.
Right.
You didn't have the phones. You didn't have all that connectivity, and that was great.
Yeah.
I shudder to think if, I grew up and went through high school and everybody had phones taking pictures and videos. Yeah. That wouldn't be good.
Oh, absolutely. And I think about I debate on this often. I cave to it, but I'll go for a long bike ride or something, and I want to leave my phone at home, and but it is like a safety net. But I'll shut it off or something and being, like you said, disconnected. And I like the thought of I'm gonna get myself into a situation, I gotta rely on myself to get back out, whether it's a hike or whatever it is. I like that feeling of kind of relying on myself, and the phone's kind of like a little crutch.
It is. Agreed.
What other things? You mentioned fishing earlier.
Yes. Well, I love to fish.
Do you?
Love to fish. Yeah.
What kind of fish?
So, one of the I mentioned the unplugging. So, I have a family fishing cabin in Canada, northern Ontario, that we go to every year. And although we didn't go in 2020 because the border was closed.
Well, Canada's kind of pretty well locked.
They've been locked down. It opened up on August 9th, and we were right there in line, crossing the border to get up to the cabin. And so
Are you fly fishing or?
I do fly fish here. Up there, no. That's more spin casting, trolling, kind of fishing, and I've got some friends here that have introduced me to fly fishing. I do some of that. I was in Florida doing some deep sea fishing last week. I love it all. It's
now you more catch and release, or you cooking what you catch, kind of thing.
I enjoy eating fish, so we go on the Canadian trip. We keep enough to eat, and back to you like to figure it out. We take up snacks and stuff, and maybe a jar of peanut butter, some hot dogs, but it's fish. So if you're not catching fish,
That's
then
great.
we're not eating. I mean, I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but
Absolutely.
my one buddy Wags, he said, pressure fishing.
I like that.
Pressure fishing. So on the fly fishing, that's been pretty much catch and release. And deep sea, we kept enough, or kept depending on the day, quite a bit to eat. So yeah, I love it. Love to eat it. Love to catch it.
I've had a lot of just thoughts on where the food comes from. Number one, I've tried to eliminate as much processed stuff as I can. Try to eat more real foods, which once again I cave way too often. But
Right.
but then there's you look at where our meat comes from. It's these animals living in and what's been pumped into their bodies and all that stuff. But then you look at monocrop agriculture, and it's not that great either. And it's I've been toying with the idea to try to hunt. I didn't grow up in a hunting family at all,
I didn't either.
and I know nothing about it. And I do love the idea of learning a new challenge and trying to know where my food comes from a bit more. And so when you're talking about fishing, that part of it sounds so appealing to me. And yeah, I am it's all on my list. I want to learn archery.
Do you have a garden?
We do. 2 years ago we started it, and it grew this year quite a bit. We learned a lot the first year, and then the second we learned we didn't know as much as we thought we knew. But the first year a bunch of people gave us, we have some friends that they gave us plants, they had already started the plants, and we started the garden from there. And then this year we started them from our own little buds, and from seeds, I should say.
Awesome. In the ground, raised
Yeah.
beds.
In the ground. Yeah, it was pretty successful this year. We grew a lot of things we didn't use so much. The timing of gardens is such an interesting thing. My buddy, who's a big gardener and kind of got me into it, was saying, just freeze those tomatoes. And we had so many tomatoes this year, and it worked. I have a couple gallons of tomatoes that are ready to go in chili whenever I want.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm like, the year before, they probably would have gone to waste or in a compost somewhere.
Right.
That's been an interesting thing for us.
I've been gardening for quite a few years. I love it. Peaceful. My family refers to as my crops, so I'm out there doing my thing. So it's good.
Yeah, we're
Nothing like fresh veggies.
yeah, but they're never. I'm such a salad guy. That's how I love my veggies, and you never get them all at the same time. But it is nice to have something you've grown yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you know where it came from. You know what's
Sure.
been put into it. Yeah, that's my food, and what I choose for food has been my biggest kind of struggle for myself. Just trying to make a better decision. The farmers market we've kind of got into this year. It's wow, I wish I'd been doing this sooner. That's meeting people in little chats, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I definitely have to start challenging myself to go out of my way and talk to people, kind of more like you do, though. I mean, I see the benefit in it. I just kind of.
And it's okay to not remember somebody's name.
Yeah.
You want to struggle, you think, oh, geez, I know that person. I've talked to them before, and I just can't remember their name. It's easy. Just walk up and admit it.
Yeah.
I know we've met. I'm struggling to, I can't remember your name, and people are so forgiving. Yeah, I can't remember everybody's name either. You
Oh,
know,
I'm
it's,
definitely a capacity of names. It, like somebody has to come out for me to get somebody else new in. That's not my forte, remembering names. That's for sure. Yeah. So what gives you? I mean, I gave you a heads up. What gives you hope for the future?
I have given this some thought since you gave me the prompt, and so I'm going to answer it in two different ways. So one, I want to go on a business tangent,
Absolutely.
and I go back to moving out here in 2003 and just having a real struggle with the setup of the company, the people that were working there, and it wasn't they were bad people. I don't want that's not what I'm getting at. It's just that it was a little bit of an older management team, and knowing that it was good, right, in a challenging way, that okay, I've got to find replacements, but it was exciting as well, finding folks to come in who were going to be good team members, want to have those common goals and so forth. And so when you think about companies transitioning, a lot of the battles we had to go through, and it was, the first couple of years, I'll tell you, it was like, is the company going to make it? Because there were a lot of things that kind of came at us at one time that were not necessarily in our control. And how do you get past those?
Right.
It's kind of, every now and then I joke and I say head down, pencil on paper, right? It's like just kind of plow through. So I have a lot of hope for the company because there are some awesome people that work there, and we've done a good job of bringing in people that have common philosophies, work ethic. I think that's one thing that I've really appreciated about folks from Maine is they're like the Midwest folks.
Right.
A very good work ethic, a sense of camaraderie, picking yourself up when you get knocked down and saying, all right, well, that didn't work. We're gonna try this time. And so from a company perspective, I worried that if I got hit by a truck tomorrow, what's the company going to do? Because there were a lot of things that were evolving, that had my fingerprints all over it, and I have a lot more hope and faith and good thoughts about the company going forward, knowing that there's a great team of people there that can carry this thing forward. Or I'm going to be gone for a week. I don't have to worry about what's going on back at the shop because I know people have my back.
Let me ask you.
Sure.
The main Midwest work ethic thing. Where do you think that comes from? What do you think?
So I know out in the Midwest, a lot of farms. So I think it's just instilled. It's an expectation, at least from where I grew up, and we didn't have a lot of money growing up as a family. We didn't. I wasn't worried about where my next meal was going to come from, but so I think that a lot of life lessons in work ethic instilled at a young age, and I just look at whether the dairy farms, the farms, the lobster, all of that, growing up in those families. I mean, I think it's just part of who you are and part of the culture of growing up and knowing those expectations and not being afraid to work. You're not being afraid to put in a hard day's work.
I think there's something too about growing up in a cold climate.
Yeah. I
You
haven't thought
have
about it, but I think that's that.
You got to go out and shovel your car off. If that's what has to happen to get to work. It's what I have to do. So every day you kind of know a little bit. You're constantly reminded that I have to put in the work to get a result, right? And it makes you, contrasted to like Southern California or something,
Sure.
where it's every day is beautiful. Like just that from a young age. I gotta shovel my driveway. I gotta do. I think that something about that makes you a little harder too.
Sure.
Yeah. Just what I was thinking.
I think that's a great point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. Okay, your second part of this.
Oh, so I guess just hope for humanity. Maybe that's the other tangent. I will confess that I was talking with my wife Amy about this. I said, "Well, Ben's put a prompt out there." I said, "It's intriguing," and so we're kind of bantering it about a little bit, and thinking about when we grew up, and now looking at our generation of children, in that late teens, early 20s, kind of group. They seem to be much more tolerant of people. Tolerant of, let's say, beliefs, gender, and all those things. You think about,
Yeah.
30 years ago, and even 30 years before that, of just where things have evolved, and will that somehow lend itself to the leaders of countries and how people get along, or even within our own country of how people get along. There's been this dynamic that has changed, and again, not to get off on a political tangent, but whether you're left, right, or in the middle, there doesn't seem to be a lot of consensus building and
Right.
getting along.
Right.
And so when you think about, or as we think about it, as my wife and I were just talking about it, where this age group, and maybe we're in our own little bubble and see our kids and who their friends are and so forth, but I think it's broader than that, that there is a little more tolerance there.
I agree.
I guess I'm hopeful that there is, based on what I see, and how that would evolve in just the culture and people trying to get along. But then you look at what we see on the news today of people on airplanes getting into fist fights and the bickering going on in government's always going to have some
Right.
back and forth, but I have hope in that sense that, okay, as these younger people kind of continue on their way, and they're more tolerant of that, there's not that stigma with certain things that may be helpful, because then they're truly seeing people for who they are,
Right.
and not so much worried about, okay, well, you think that way, or you are behaving in this way, that they're just more tolerant of that going forward.
And they're because of technology, they're exposed to more different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I do think technology too amplifies what we're seeing. We see somebody on a plane. Well, 20 years ago you wouldn't see that because there wasn't a phone to record that. And I gotta think that those are more the outliers than the majority. I think that's a great point to make. I've challenged myself to come up with a new one every time I do one of these podcasts, and it's getting harder. But I was thinking today that, and I was struggling trying to come up with something. I even asked Dee, and she's giving me my father's answer. I'm like, I can't use that one. But I was thinking that, like, growing up, the news was always on in the house during the day or night, or when at some point we'd watch the news, morning news, evening news, and we'd learn about the country or whatever. And being an educated citizen, it always felt like a thing that my parents wanted to do and I wanted to do. And I'd say it's about pre-COVID, probably 2 or 3 years ago, Dee and I just were like, we just kind of stopped. Like, I don't need the negativity that I see every night. And we kind of just separated ourselves from it. And I was thinking that, their ratings across the board, I think, are going down quite a bit. And I got to think that people are just sick of, I've heard it described as fear porn, or the people are trying to, there's a push politically. I think people feel whatever the other side, whatever news channel you're, it's a watered down kind of talking heads kind of thing, and I think people want other news sources, and I think there's a want for kind of the truth, just the truth, and I think that's and so my hope for the future in this regard is that that maybe we'll swing the other way. Maybe there's an opportunity for somebody to come out with a news channel where we're just going to try to play it as, just give you the facts as much as we can, or or the internet and podcasting and sources that you can see, you can find the information yourself. You have more access to the information. So I'm hopeful that coming back together happens because of the extremes, because of everything getting so. It's just, I know for my general mental health, shutting off the news was the best thing, the best choice, and even social media, getting off that as much as I could.
I'll watch, especially on the weekends in the morning. Well, I could watch the local stuff, just to
Yes.
see what's going on in Maine and so forth. But it's the national, shut it down. I don't. I'm not a regular tuning in type person.
Right.
In that vein, and I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, well, my father's. I asked my dad this question, and he started going on all these negative things. I'm like, Dad, I asked you hope for the future. He's like, what are you doing? You're killing me. But his overall point was that everything swung so far that if you look at history, it has to come back together. It has. I'm like, okay, you tied it in together. I was getting nervous there. And one last thing I do want to ask you, which, because it's something that's kind of, it's still a little ways off, but you're an empty nester, right?
Not officially. So Adam's still at the house. He is anxiously wanting to move out, but having a full-time job, which he's working almost full-time, I think is important so that he can be self-sufficient when he moves out of the house. So his hours and stuff that he works, we're most nights the two of us are eating.
Right.
My wife and I are eating.
Right.
By ourselves.
But once high school ends, and they're kind of more independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting transition. I mean, I look forward to more time with Dee and stuff, but so much of my life has been hanging out with the kids and doing stuff with the kids together.
I've missed the sports, and because Adam's now he's graduated. He's been out almost 2 years. Emily's at UMO, and so she's on the dance team, so she's active with the football games, the basketball games, and so forth. So we still go to those and
right.
very much enjoy that piece of it. But I missed when they were in high school. And maybe it was not only watching our kids participate, but then it was the connection with the parents.
Yeah.
Right? And so you had this little network and group of people that you saw on a regular basis, and and some of those things they naturally will fall to the wayside. It's just people get busy and other things and take different directions, but there was some camaraderie there as well, right? It's we talked about that throughout the discussion, but yeah, we've enjoyed every stage of our kids, from the babies to the
right.
active part, and now they're moving on to different parts or different aspects of their lives. That it's okay, where's our role now?
Right.
And you find your way. And I think we feel blessed that our kids still enjoy doing things with us.
Right.
And that's not always the case, and I think that has a lot to do with how you raise your kids.
Yes.
And we feel very fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, Kaylin loves climbing guitar. It's like I feel like that's like something that's been passed down a couple of generations to me, and she came up to me not long ago and was like, I think, she's been like a weight room junkie. She goes gym. Her and her boyfriend, they love that, and I'm like, okay, that's good. And she came up to me recently and said, I think I want to start doing triathlon. I'm like, yes.
I can help.
Because it's a sport that we could share together. We could
That's
go
right.
do events together.
Absolutely.
And, it's like, okay, I see something. We could have a future here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely how you raise them, though. I don't know how to tell somebody how to do it the right way. You just.
There is no one right way. I mean, there's certainly things you can do wrong.
Yeah. But just setting a good example. It's the best. It's the best advice I could. Yeah.
So much to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate this so much.
Oh, it was great.
And
I enjoyed it. I'm looking at your screen over there, and it's 2 hours. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. It
Flew
is
right
kinda
by.
crazy. I'm jealous of how good your eyes are. It did fly by.
Yeah,
Yeah.
LASIX.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that go? Was that?
Great. It's only 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not using readers yet either. That's not necessarily attributable to LASIX. I mean, that's just, I think, a function of my eyes because they
Right.
told me
Right.
not going to eliminate the need for cheaters.
Right. Right.
See, I wore glasses for a while. My wife, she had LASIX also. I mean, she wore glasses since grade school. I didn't wear them until I was in college.
I've only been the last, I guess probably 10 years maybe, but I like them. Like, I'm not restricted to glasses. I still have enough sight, but it's definitely, I could see it deteriorating. And I've debated on the LASIK thing, but I'm like, every year I can put it off the technology, it gets a little better maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? Thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, man.